and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 285, and today's date is February 8th, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. And what do we know? Well, we know the U.S. government is going around looking for revenue, and they're looking inside the United States, and they're looking around the world. They are making deals with every single country to report those individuals who are not claiming their income. Even if those people are working in another country and hold a U.S. passport, they still have to pay tax on that income. So what's happening right now is many people are saying, you know what, this is ridiculous. I'm going to turn in my passport and no longer be a U.S. citizen. And right now, 2,999 people have renounced their U.S. citizenship in 2013. Now, this is much, much higher because in 2011, only 1,700 people renounced their citizenship. And if we look back in time, if we go back to 1998, we're looking at only around 400 people. So it is increasing exponentially, and it is and more people are starting to realize what is going on here. Because again, the debt cannot be sustained, and this is why the government is looking all over the place to get the revenue to pay for this debt. But you know what? They're not going to find what they're looking for because the people out there are unemployed. They just don't have the money. And what's going on now is more and more people have no work, and even if they do have work, they are working part-time. They are not making the salaries that they were a couple years ago. Actually, salaries have been going down in the opposite direction as things get more expensive. So what they're looking for is not what they're going to find, and this is why they've created these bail-in documents throughout Europe, in Canada, Australia, the UK, and America, because they realize when everything completely falls apart, they will have to raid everyone's savings account in the banks, and this is why we're seeing this happen here. Now, we must be getting close to something because this is the fourth executive found dead now and this one was a self-inflicted nail gun wound. This is Richard Talley, founder and CEO of American Title, was found dead in his home from self-inflicted wounds, and we've seen 3 other bankers who've committed suicide, allegedly committed suicide. So something must be going on, and there are reports around that the hit is out and more bankers are going to be committing suicide, actually being knocked off so they can't testify and they can't report what's really going on. So they start removing these individuals, and this is what we're seeing right now. Now, we understand that every single American is being spied on by the NSA. We understand that other countries have these programs, and we have to remember what these spy agencies do. They use dirty tricks, like spying on the porn habits of a non-terrorist and then trying to leak them to discredit those non-terrorist individuals. And the United States is not the only country that does this. The UK does this with their GCHQ spying organization, and they have an agenda which goes ahead and pretty much sets up a honey trap for these people. It changes their photos on social networking sites. It writes a blog purporting to be one of their victims, and then email text their colleagues, neighbors, and friends. And when it comes to companies, they go even further. They look to leak confidential information to the companies, post negative information on appropriate forums, and stop deals and ruin business relationships. So we can see that all these spy agencies are completely into destroying people's lives to get their agenda pushed forward. And, we're seeing this all over the place. And of course, it's very hard to believe. It actually sounds like it's a movie that you're watching, but this is happening in real life, and this is what's happening today. They are going around creating stories. The news organizations are telling you completely non-fact, fictional stories to promote the entire government's agenda. And really what we're seeing right now, that since 9/11, actually going back further than that, they've told us a story about terrorism and terrorists. And this is to bring every single person and keep them controlled. And the U.S. government has long used anti-terror laws to crush dissent and protect the powers that be. These programs were never about terrorism. They were about economic spying, social control, and diplomatic manipulation. They're about power and protecting those people who handle the money systems. The government arbitrarily labels anyone it doesn't like, including American citizens, as terrorists. And this is why they implemented the NDAA, because they don't just implement these laws for no reason. They create these laws because they understand sooner or later they will need to use them. And of course, the NDAA, the president come out and say, you are a terrorist, you go to jail for 1 year without any due process, and it allows them to round up people. As soon as you're declared a terrorist, that's it. They are saying your rights are completely gone, and they can do pretty much whatever they want with you. And the reason why they changed the political dissident label on people into terrorist, it's because it would be much easier for people, including people within the CIA and law enforcement, to accept the domestic operations if they thought they were aimed primarily at stopping terrorism rather than at stopping dissent. And this is why we saw everything completely change to terrorism, because this is what they're looking to do. And if you are deemed a terrorist, the law enforcement, DHS, TSA have no problem bringing you in or killing you, because they realize if you are a terrorist, you are here to hurt the homeland. And this is how these people think. And this is why when things go down the tubes, these people are going to be out in force, thinking that pretty much whoever they're labeling is terrorists, they're going to go after. And this is where the problem comes in. Now, we understand that the president said he was going to change laws, write executive orders with or without Congress, probably most of the time without Congress, because the process for him takes too long, and he'd rather just do things on his own. And right now, other agencies are taking the lead here, like the Department of Homeland Security, along with other agencies. And the Department of Homeland Security right now, what they are doing is they have published new exemptions that would allow immigrants who provided limited material support to terrorists into the country today. So I've done a report a couple weeks back where I said DHS is bringing in terrorists by the busload. Well, here they are. They just changed the law, and what they are actually doing right now is they're allowing these people in with limited terrorist association to come into the country. And Jay Johnson and Secretary of State John Kerry approved these exemptions. And right now it's under investigation because they're saying they just can't make these laws up. It has to go through Congress. And of course, according to our Constitution, yes, it does. Now, a couple reports back, we talked about how they're trying to pass this bill in Turkey to shut down and limit the sites that people can see in Turkey through the internet. And right now, the Prime Minister Erdogan has rejected claims that the country's newly adopted cyber law will limit freedom of expression. And remember what I always say, every time a government official comes out there and tells you that don't worry, we're not taking away your freedom, it's always the opposite. And he went on to say that these regulations do not impose any censorship at all on the internet. On the contrary, they make it safer and freer. That is completely false, as we all know it. It's almost like the TSA is there to help you, to keep you safe. The DHS is there to keep the people safe. No, what they're doing is they're taking away our liberties and locking us down and watching our every move, because they understand when this economic collapse comes, they will be coming for the people on their lists. And this is why they have created these lists, because they are tracking and making sure they know where every single person is. Now, again, I talked about Bosnia yesterday, where we see the Bosnian government and the people and the people are rioting right now. Well, we have the same situation in Ukraine, and Bosnia was going to join NATO and EU. They've been putting it off. But again, the central bankers, their backs are against the wall here. They have to push these countries forward. They have to get as many of these countries joined with NATO and the private Western Central Bank implemented in these countries, and they need to take on the EU or the US dollar to push this debt system further forward so they can prop up all of these currencies. So right now in Bosnia, we're seeing that the presidential palace in Bosnia was set on fire as riots broke out. And of course, they're using all different other reasons of why these riots are breaking out, because the economy's bad there, people don't like what's going on. But the real reason is because these central bankers are pushing their agenda forward, and this is why we're seeing this happen all over the place. Now, we talk a lot about Iran and how we're having these peace deals, and it's all about nuclear, and I've discussed this before where it is completely not about nuclear whatsoever. But Iran right now has dispatched the Army's naval fleet, and they're headed toward the United States maritime borders as part of a long-standing protest against U.S. vessels in the Persian Gulf. We'll have to see what happens there. I'm sure nothing will happen at this point. It's just flexing muscles back and forth. And this goes on to say the Iranian Army's naval fleet have already started their voyage toward the Atlantic Ocean via the waters near South Africa. And as we're speaking about Iran right now, the Iran's supreme leader said on Saturday that the United States would overthrow the Iranian government if it could, adding Washington had a controlling and meddlesome attitude towards the Islamic Republic. And we understand the central bankers, their end goal is to get into Iran. They want to overthrow the government eventually and put all the natural resources on the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, and they want to do the same thing in Syria, and they want to do the same thing in Africa, and they want to do the same thing in Ukraine and in Bosnia. And they are already right now in the Middle East holding control and keeping the people back, because they've already invaded all these countries and already put the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency in those countries, but the people are fighting back right now, and those people who are fighting back they call Al-Qaeda, and they are not terrorists, they are people of the country trying to get their country back. But right now, the supreme leader said the American officials publicly say they do not seek a regime change in Iran. Well, he's saying that's a lie. They wouldn't hesitate a moment if they could do it, and we know this as a fact that the end goal, and you have to remember this. I know there's a lot of other news out there, and there's a lot of other information, and they always try to manipulate what is actually the root cause of what's going on. It's almost like a disease. There's a lot of different symptoms and a lot of different things, but the only way to stop it is to go to the root cause and to understand what is actually going on. And what we are seeing here is they are making a play in every single country now, because they understand they need to prop up the U.S. dollar. Right now, they are using a sneaky type of method to get into Iran. The illusion is of nuclear talks, but the real goal is to get into Iranian banks. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to infiltrate the banks. The IMF is there looking into the banking situation. They're trying to set interest rates, and eventually they will make their move to try to put all the natural resources on the U.S. dollar. But we have to remember, Russia is there making deals with Iran right now. And of course, we know this to be true. It's because the United States and the central bankers have been saying to every country, no, you cannot do business with Iran yet. They are not ready. We'll release some funds to show some good gesture, but until we get the banking system the way we want it and we're making a profit off of them, you cannot do business. And this is why they will impose sanctions on any country that tries to do business with Iran. Syria, on the other hand, they understand there's no way they can get in there. What they need to do at this point is they're going to strike into Syria, and they're going to use a false flag event like I've been talking about, because they need Assad out of there. They need to get into Syria, replace their system, put in the private Western Central Bank, and put all the natural resources using the US dollar. Because what has happened in Syria is that the war has been going on very long. The US government, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UK have been funding the rebels in Syria. This battle has been going nowhere. They realize it. It's a lost situation. This is why they tried the chemical attack in August, because they knew this couldn't go on any longer because they was getting them no place. And we're coming towards the end game here, and they need to do something. And again, their plans were pushed off because of Russia making a deal. If we just get rid of their chemical weapons, will you be happy? Of course, they said yes, but now here we are with the Geneva II talks where they're saying we want Assad removed, we want a transitional government in there. Of course, they're not going to get their way, so they're going to stamp their feet, carry on, and create this false flag event, which they've been building up to now for the last couple of weeks. They've been really pushing it hard, and we can see where they're going with this. We're going to see probably, I'm not saying it's tomorrow, but in the next month, 2 months, we'll probably see something occur, or it might take a little bit longer, but it's coming pretty quickly, because we can see how this has been building up very quickly, and they understand they need to get into Syria, and they understand that the American people, they do not want war at all. They do not have the stomach for it. They don't want it. They feel it has nothing to do with them. So what they're going to do is, of course, they're going to have to bring it back here to the United States, and they will probably push this agenda forward. You might see attacks happening in the UK and other places in the world, but the main one will hit in the United States because they need to push this forward. And we have to understand that Russia and China back Syria, and if we start going into Syria, this is going to turn ugly. Listen, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.